Hello and welcome back to Veteran Instincts. This week we bring you a match from the ongoing X-Wing Ready Room List Roulette tournament between self-proclaimed mid-table chancers Phill Blackmore and Jason Simmons. Unfortunately, due to us recording this at the last minute, Lloyd hasn't been able to join us. Luckily for us, some guy named Ollie Pocknell has offered to step in and co-commentate. Hello guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
We joined the match here with rocks down and lists placed. But before the recording started, I noticed that you each had 3 lists to choose from. Phill, why don't we start with you? What was going on with the list selection here in this match?
So the Ready Room Roulette is quite an exciting format where we've had to submit 3 lists. They're then saved to a disk when you come onto Tabletop Simulator, and you randomly pick your opponent's list. So you have no prior knowledge of which list you're going to face.
Did you even know what the potential matchups were, or is it just completely blind going in?
You can have a look. I didn't. I believe Jason did.
Yes, I did. I did a little bit of research on your lists and kind of came up with some bullet point plans against each of them.
Oh, awesome. That is very Veteran Instincts. I like to hear. And am I right in that even your own list choice is random? You don't know from which the 3 of your lists what you're picking, or did you know the list you were picking yourself?
No, you didn't. Your opponent chooses one of the discs at random, so you have no idea.
And so why don't we start with Phill? Phill, talk us through your list.
Okay, so we start with Major Vinder, Fire Control System, Concussion Missiles, Cluster Missiles, Advanced Slam, and the OS1 Arsenal loadout. He is just a hammer. I've built him to be a little independent, run round, ignore him at your peril. And if you do go after him, with moving twice a turn, pretty much he can move and get out of dodge. You've then got Rampage with marksmanship, sync laser cannons, and target assist. The combo between sync laser cannon and target assist, I think on paper looks really sweet. I'm not sure if it works with Rampage though. Then we've got Fifth Brother, pretty much a standard fire control system and homing missiles, and Seventh Sister with fire control.
And before we move on to Jason's list, so Vinder, for those that don't know, when he has a weapons disable token, he gets an extra agility, so his pilot skill allows him to get up to agility 3. And that OS1 Arsenal loadout means that he can shoot at something he has target locked, despite having a single weapons disabled token. The caveat to that being that he is not able to spend the lock during the attack, so he'll have the 1 reroll from fire control system. From Rampage's point of view, if you don't mind, talk us through what Rampage does, what synced laser cannons do, and maybe even the target assist as well.
Okay, so Rampage is the ability, if he does a speed 3 or 4 maneuver and lands within range 0 to 1 of an opponent, he can give them a strain token. If he's damaged, he gives them 2 strain tokens. So he's quite an effective blocking piece. Sync laser cannons are 3 dice at range 2 to 3. If you are calculating, the opponent cannot apply range bonuses. And then the target assist, when he engages, if you have no green tokens, you may assign a free calculate token for every opponent in your firing arc up to range 3, up to a maximum of 2.
This ship just seems like Bobber's absolute worst nightmare, because it doesn't matter how many dice that you reroll. If you've only got 1 dice, you're going to be taking some damage.
Yeah, and on that, sort of going on to Jason's list, more of a kind of known quantity in the meta, the Bobber Koshka, with a fairly standard loadout on both of them. Jason, you mentioned at the start that you had kind of cliff notes on what to do versus all these squads. So what was the plan here?
So the top of my list was either kill Vinder or stay away from Vinder, and because like he can just deliver so much damage with his torpedoes and things, and he's very fast. So I knew he was a big threat. The other one, Rampage, with handing out the strain tokens, as Ollie said, can really hurt the fire sprays, because if you take away the green dice, it doesn't matter how many re-rolls and tokens you've got. You can't modify what's not there. So a combination of Rampage and Vinder and the 2 Inquisitors would have been really damaging to their fire sprays. So yeah, Vinder was my number one target.
And it looks like Phill has maybe unwittingly given you a little bit of advantage here in that you can go for Vinder and stay away from Rampage at the same time. And we see that you have indeed turned away. Phill, looking at your opening, what was your kind of game plan?
If I can kill Bobber for losing 2 ships, where having the I4s means that I can pretty much dance around Koshka.
Yeah,
Nice.
because for once, Vinder is actually an ace in this game, because Koshka being initiative 3, if Vinder is allowed to be at the end of the game, I think Jason's got absolutely the right idea with you've got to kill Vinder. If you have an end game of initiative 4 slamming Gunboat, then Koshka never sees him.
Yeah, and in fact, Jason, if Bobber dies here, you are in trouble, aren't you? Because any and all of these, I mean, Koshka can maybe take out Rampage if it's 1v1 at the end of the game, but I'd certainly be worried about any of the other 3 if with enough time left on the clock. Phill, kill Bobber sounds like a good plan. Often easier said than done.
Yeah.
Are you particularly worried about sort of trying to get that range 3 engagement, stay at a range 1, or is that overcomplicating it and you're just going to kind of get as many arcs on as possible?
I'm going for as many arcs as possible. The thing being, his rerolls are nice, but if I can roll 3 dice and get 3 hits, I'm still pushing 1 damage through. If I can do that multiple times, he's gonna whittle him down.
Yeah, and I think that's very sensible. I think the worst possible scenario with Bobber is that you get 1 ship at range 1 to give him his nice 1 reroll, which is realistically all he needs on defense, and then the rest are at range 2. I think if you can get range 3 with everything, beautiful, or range 2 with everything, even better. But if something's going to be at range 1, you're definitely better off getting everything at range 1, in my opinion. So we quick start to the game. We're into the first shots. Bit of weirdness in this video, I'm afraid, guys, with the firing arcs. TTS does this sometimes when your opponent's checking their arc, or if you're spectating the game, they're seeing the arc correctly, but it displays it incorrectly for you. So Bobber checking his arc there. Vinder just out.
That was millimeters out. The nubs were actually in range, but the base wasn't.
We spent a couple of minutes magnifying that. Just like, are you sure?
Fifth Brother is not unhappy about having a shot here. In terms of list decision, what was your thinking in taking fire controls over passive sensors on Fifth Brother?
To be honest, when you're rolling 2 dice, as a base attack, having that fire control system it doesn't guarantee it, but it definitely feels you can get more out of it.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I mean, I suppose if you have a look at this list, Fifth Brother and Seventh Sister are your end game. So if you're going for longevity as opposed to that initial punch, then having fire control on Fifth Brother, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we saw there fire control not required. Nice opening 2 hits there from Fifth Brother. Bobber getting the 1 evade, an early chip of 1 shield off Bobber. Not a disaster, but certainly a nice opening. I was going to ask the same question, Ollie. I think, if I'm honest, I much prefer passive on Fifth, but it is a case of what you're wanting him to do in the list. I think as a sort of piece to scare aces, he's definitely better off with passive, gives him the ability to get that lock on whatever rolls into range. But I totally accept your point that as an end game piece, fire control system in the end continues to work, once those homing whistles have gone.
Yeah, and if you've got the permanent lock threat, then it can work well. I am sorry, I feel like I'm battering you with questions there, Phill. What did you think on because you had the opportunity to push 2 damage into Bubba there with using Fifth Brother's ability? As soon as that 1 hit goes through, you can spend the 2 force to do that extra crit.
I anticipated him coming in. Looking at the setup now, I could see that I was going to get a chance to hopefully get 3 shots on Bobber in the next turn, and if I could take his shields down with Seventh Sister and Vinder, it would opening up with Fifth Brother, shooting third out of those would have been able to push the crits through and do some more significant damage.
Yeah, and so putting crits into Bobber's hull is absolutely worth saving those 2 force. Nice.
Yeah, I think that's really sensible. And if Bobber comes in, you're going to get that range 1 shot and have the ability to do it. And equally, if Bobber turns away, then the homing missiles come into play, and they are terrifying if Fifth Brother's ability is on, much less worrying if it's not. So I completely agree with the decision not to spend there. I think keeping the 2 forces is sensible for next turn. So opening wise, what are your thoughts, Ollie? I think personally, I prefer Jason's position a little bit, and I think the only issue for Phill is that Rampage is looking a little bit out of it, and he doesn't have a natural route back into the fight for a turn or two.
Rampage is looking sad, but I mean, normally I would be nervous for Vinder. I was nervous for Vinder last turn if both fire sprays are sort of 3 banked and boosted, so he would have ended up getting some serious firepower in there. With where he is right now, then Vinder does have the opportunity to escape, and I think it's going to come down to, can Jason's fire sprays trap Vinder? And you can see here with Koshka coming in, she is going for blocks, because if Vinder gets bumped in, this is the advantage of having Koshka moving first. If Vinder did decide to turn away, then obviously Bobber is coming in with an absolute hammer. I think I would have liked the idea of deploying Rampage in the center of the board. He's such a jouster that putting him in the center allows you to go wherever your opponent goes. So he could have just cruised up the middle nice and fast and then turned into wherever the engagement was going to happen.
Yeah, I suppose the only problem with setting him up in the middle is the rock setup. Phill, how did you feel about the rocks? Were you kind of happy with that tight cluster in the middle?
I was quite happy with the cluster in the middle with the tie advanced because I thought I can fly around them quite easily, and it discourages the fire sprays from coming in. So I basically own the middle of the board. This move here was a little bit confusing to me. For Seventh Sister to do a 1 bank boost, and then Fifth Brother to do and land it, and then Fifth Brother to do a 1 bank and
yeah, I was just about to praise you for the move where Seventh Sister landed, because it was such a good and well-judged turn above Fifth Brother. Unfortunate for the first engagement there. I think Fifth would have really liked to target lock.
Yeah.
Jason, how do you feel about this as it's panning out so far? What were your thoughts as all of those Imperial ships were moving into play?
Well, first of all, I'm quite pleased that Rampage is stuck over the other side of the board and out of the fight. And like, so the turn before, when I checked the range onto Vinder, and it was very close, I knew exactly how far he was, and I was kind of trying to do some maths in my head about how I could get either bumped into him so he doesn't get a shot on Bobber, or just past him. And the 3 bank here just gets me out of his firing arc, I think, and I still get a rear arc shot onto.
Ooh.
That is just in, and the front arc shot onto the bumped Fifth Brother is just out. So we've got first proper shot of the game, shall we say? Range 1 rear arc from Bobber, 3 rerolls if you should need them, and the focus token, of course.
So I kind of think that the fire sprays are very forgiving, because you have the 2 arcs and you get so many kind of mods without having to take actions. It's they let you get away with so much stuff.
It should be noted, though, that you've been flying these fire sprays for quite a while at this point, though.
Yeah, they're pretty much the 2 ships I've used exclusively for almost since 2nd edition came out. So.
And if for anyone who has the opportunity to play against Jason's fire sprays in person, they are so beautifully painted.
Oh, thanks, Ollie.
That's right.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to, getting back to the table and recording the game so that we can kind of show off people's art in the way that we can't on TTS. Bobber opening up with a decent opening salvo there. Maybe slightly under. He's got 3 having to spend a force. Nice 2 natural evades from Vinder, only taking 1. Looks like he's probably arc dodged Koshka as well.
Yeah, he did.
And so now we've got these, as you said, sort of get everything to range 1, roll more dice than Bobber can. So we've got these 2 tie advanced coming in, starting off with Fifth Brother. Having said last turn about sort of the plan to strip shields first, I know it's unlikely that Bobber ends up with no shields here, but probably a slight sort of ordering mistake there, not shooting with 7th first.
Definitely. He'd arc dodged Vinder, and I was just like, right, okay, next card along.
Yeah.
And easily done, especially when things haven't gone quite to plan in sort of with the bump and everything. Rolls 2 hits and a focus here. Decision to spend the focus for the extra hit with those 3 shields left. Doesn't seem to be any sense in spending 2 force when 1 will do.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and spend a force here, get 3 hits, and we've got Bobber's defense roll. Still got to focus, but going to be taking at least 1.
And this is where Bobber loves to live. He likes being at range 1.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good idea to spend Fifth Brother's force here, because as long as you're only spending 1 per turn, you've always got that threat of next round he's going to crit you.
So re-rolled both. So I ended up with 1 evade, taking 2 damage there. 2 crits coming in from Seventh Sister here. Really could do with some evades and gets them.
Yeah, there we go. So, Bobber activates.
And 7th there didn't spend anything, but decides not to spend for the crack shot. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think, again, especially in the situation that these Inquisitors are in, they're going to have a rough next turn. There's going to be shots coming in. Bobber's likely turning away and presenting that rear arc. So you want to make sure that you have that force for defense on those turns. And one of the easiest ways to lose these Inquisitors, even though they're incredibly tanky, is to burn through that force super, super quickly and getting aggressive too early with those abilities.
Yeah, I think I was mindful of that, and then maybe was a little bit too conservative.
It's a hard call because at the moment, if you'd have gone really for glory there, then you could have taken Bobber to half that turn. He would have taken the 2 extra damage. On the flip side of things, maybe you'd have lost the Inquisitor next round, and that could have lost you the games.
Yeah, I think so far, Phil, I'd agree with your choices with the force spend. So interesting positioning after that turn. 3 shields on Bobber for 1 shield on Vinder feels like a very good start to the game.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with just 1 shield on Vinder. I was kind of hoping for a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Vinder can be a nightmare with that 3 agility, but going into this turn with no token for defense, I think very fair to expect more than 1 damage. Jason, Bobber in a sort of interesting position here. Lovely position for the proton bomb drop. Phil's going to have to be really aware of that.
I felt that coming through the force.
Facing that rock, the 1 hard looks like it'll fit. The 2 hard maybe skirts around the rock, but both are very predictable.
Well, I'm kind of thinking that the bomb drop has to come. The 2 Inquisitors, they've two shields and 2 hull. That they don't really want to lose a shield to a proton bomb. So I'm kind of hoping that Phill will try and evade that bomb and not get collapsing onto Bobber. And Bobber's got a rear arc as well. So that kind of, even if he turns away, he's still in the fight. And I've got Koshka there who can come in and threaten the Inquisitors as well.
So if you were to be super sneaky this turn, I mean, I'm just looking at this from a weird angle, but it seems as if the hard 3 from Seventh Sister will fit this turn. So if you were to be cheeky, you could hard 1 Fifth Brother to the right, crashing into Seventh Sister and keeping him exactly where he is, which stops Bobber from slave wanting either way. And then you hard 3 Seventh Sister over the top to block Bobber onto the asteroid.
That would be some next level thinking, that.
However, if Bobber just decides to go forwards, then you're screwed.
So we see the bomb drop there. I really like this move, Jason. Like bringing Koshka in, sort of seems maybe a little bit counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Got the bump and also within range 1 of that bomb, but she's full health.
Yeah.
That is a really scary position for her arc to be in. As I say, I really like that move.
Yeah, I was surprised it bumped onto Vinder, but I misjudged that. But I was quite happy to lose a shield to the proton bomb if I could catch one of the Inquisitors like before it could get away from the proton bomb with a bump or to block a boost or something. My goal here was to get one of the Inquisitors between the 2 fire sprays.
And Phil's starting off with Vinder. Currently far too friendly with that bomb.
There's no reason to hang around there. So nice little slam.
Choice between the sort of 2 bank and the 2 straights.
Yeah.
2 straight keeps you out of Koshka's arc. Feels like a good choice. A little bit out of the fight, but with slam, I definitely have the ability to get back involved. And then we see what you do with these Inquisitors. Starting off with 5th.
And the bump.
Do indeed get the bump. And that is a lovely move, right? As we can see, that looks safe from that bomb. Not ideal that Koshka's facing towards, but an unmodded Koshka. And yeah, I mean, so far you're making the same moves as the world champions. Whether sitting here, slightly lucky. That doesn't clear Koshka by much, and being bumped there by that bomb would have been far less good. But as it is, have the options. Boost looks good. Gets you into position potentially to block Bobber and also gets you out of that proton bomb and Koshka's arc. So I can't imagine that you're going to stay still. Got choices between the curved and the straight boost. Any advantage to either in your mind?
I was very conscious of where it was going to be in the next turn, and I thought that the straight boost just gave me a few more options to either go straight or turn in, depending on where Bobber went.
Yeah, that's very fair. I think if it were me, I'd have been tempted by the chance of getting Bobber on the rock, and I think that the bank boost may have, if he has hard turned right, may not leave him with many options. But I completely take your point that the straight boost gives you more flexibility for next turn. Rampage, trying to get involved. Nice early target lock acquisition there. Always something to consider, the target lock, if you've got a ship that's sort of not likely to get shots or not likely to get shot at. With the token sticking around, sounds obvious, but it's much more useful than the focus would have been, or the reinforce. Bobber with the 2 bank there. And Jason, I think that's a really nice move.
Thanks.
Bit unlucky to take the shield, but definitely in a much better place than if you dialed in a hard turn there. Worried about the block? Was that why you went for the bank?
Not so much. It was more to try and get that rear arc into the area between the 2 fire sprays. I kind of like, if Koshka hadn't bumped onto Vinder, and maybe I'd have got the block on Seventh Sister. The Seventh Sister would have taken the proton bomb and a rear arc shot from Bobber.
Put the stress on Seventh Sister now, because we had rolled dice. So
yeah, absolutely, and she does not mind being stressed at all. Those little things can do blues all day.
So we get the rear arc shot obstructed onto Fifth Brother here. Fifth still has all his force.
No reason not to spend the focus.
Had the force there for mods, Bobber, rather than the focus having gone over the rock. The hit crit, unlikely to take much damage here. And then nice 2 natural evades from Fifth, not even having to spend any force. Good decision, I think, to take the stress on Seventh Sister. Being out of Koshka's arc, it doesn't give Koshka any mods, and it also doesn't give her the calculate mod that she would have had against Fifth Brother. The downside of the stress, as Ollie says, easily mitigated by these tie advance with their really good blues.
Yeah, and here we are seeing the problem from that Jason does have, is that it's really hard to sink damage onto these 3 agility ships with the force.
Yeah,
at least Bobber has he's got a bit of an ability to get out of trouble now. We've got some of the shots coming into Koshka.
So this is Fifth into Koshka. 2 force is unmodded shot coming back. I think you decide safe to spend here, and I'd agree for hit crit. This is range 2. Koshka gets the evade and just takes a shield. And then the final shot of this round, and so Rampage out of range there, and we get the Koshka shot, range 2 into a Fifth Brother who only has a single force, but Koshka herself has no mods, so we'll be slightly unlucky to take damage here. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and if this is where the those Inquisitors do start to feel it, is if they have to spend both those force, then they can start getting into problems. But with red dice like that, they are not too worried.
Yeah, and as you say, Ollie, although damage there was unlikely, getting Fifth to spend his second force would not have been nothing. But as it is, poor attack roll, and a good round for Phill there. Koshka taking 1 from the bomb and 1 from Fifth, and no damage in return. I think decent manoeuvre so far, but yet to get the rewards. How are you feeling about it at this point?
No, it's not great to have lost all the shields on Bobber. That is a bit worrying. But also, Vinder is a little bit out of the battle at the moment, and Rampage hasn't made her presence felt too badly. Obviously, the 2 Inquisitors are pretty scary, But I'm kind of looking at Seventh Sister there, and I'm kind of thinking I might be able to get her trapped between the rear arc of Bobber and the rear arc of Koshka, and get 2 shots in that might do a decent amount of damage.
Yeah, and you've almost, although Rampage is on the way back in, you've almost taken this sort of 4v2 and turned it into a 2v2. And although these Inquisitors are good and are great value for their 45 and 49 points respectively, they are not, 100-odd point fire sprays. And you've got to believe that if you keep this as a 2v2, you're gonna start to kind of come out on top eventually.
Also, as well, they do not have a lot of shields and health, and one bad green dice roll can really hurt them. So that's what I'm hoping for.
And Phill, from your point of view, Koshka not really in a position to drop a bomb here, but Bobber could do.
Yeah.
And looking at it, Fifth looks like he's in a slightly tricky spot. Koshka has the ability to kind of cut down a lot of his short moves, and that 3 hard left, which looks appealing, is much less appealing if a proton bomb gets dropped.
Most definitely. I think I was concentrating on. I knew that I was going to charge in with Rampage. Desperate to get Rampage into the fight now to tip the scales back onto a 3v2. Knew where I was going with. Vinda was going to be making the turns to bring himself back into the fight. I was, at this point, I'm thinking the easiest thing to do would be to try and block Bobber using Seventh Sister, and then if he does drop a bomb, he'll be eating his own bomb, and just try my best to do a long move with Fifth Brother to minimise the potential damage.
Nice. Blocking Bobber, often a bit of a double-edged sword because you reduce the incoming fire and you give him his reroll. But yeah, certainly if the outcome is him taking his own proton bomb and the plan with everything else is to kind of run away, that feels like a solid plan. You can see Koshka coming in here. No proton bomb drop actually from Jason. Particular reason for that, Jace?
I know the Inquisitors are quite maneuverable. I didn't think I'd catch anyone if I dropped a proton there. And losing 1 shield on Koshka from a proton bomb is one thing, but when you start to lose 2, you kind of have to weigh it up a little bit more. So.
Yeah, very sensible. And I suppose, sort of contradicting what I've just said, the last bomb is more valuable than the first, right? Like the threat of that bomb is something that Phill has to take account of until you drop it. And I agree. Dropping it now, maybe not getting any benefit, damaging Koshka, and then Phill being able to kind of plan his maneuvers freely without having to worry about it. All feels sort of
the risk reward was definitely not in the favor of that bomb. And I think in this case, this is, whilst the last turn was bad for Jason and his sprays, this turn feels an awful lot better. He has the opportunity to get some serious guns on target, and there isn't as much coming back into him. Again, as you say, Fifth Brother is in trouble, and Vinda is very much out of the fight at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So we get 7th coming round. Could be in a blocking position there. I mean, the hard turn right was an option, although doesn't have the slave one, so maybe less likely. Well, the slave one would have been obviously on the asteroid if he changed it to left. So I like the boost. Kind of blocks the long banks, blocks the straight maneuvers. That feels pretty solid.
One of the disadvantages that Phill did have last turn is because he took that stress on Seventh Sister, then when flying Bobber at Seventh Sister, that is the maximum point she can get to, which the 3 bank doesn't cover. So if Jason wanted to plan in a move that was safe, you could 3 bank left or 4 forwards, and you would know that it would definitely clear, no matter where Seventh Sister ended up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. I'd have been a little bit worried about the 3 bank ending up on this asteroid.
I'm looking at this at an angle, but it's. That is literally my fault because I'm the one that recorded it.
So Fifth Brother doesn't believe in bombs. Turns in there in a slightly tricky position at range 1 of the rear arc of Koshka, who has rear arc rerolls with Marauder. But definitely looking like he's going to be able to put some damage into Bobber this turn.
Mm-hmm.
And Vinda, as you say, coming back around. And we're able to start seeing his abilities sort of kicking in here. Switches his target lock from Bobber to Koshka, meaning that despite the fact his weapon's disabled, he's going to be able to take a shot. Not a great shot through the rock, but a shot nevertheless. What action did we see there from Fifth Brother?
He took a lock onto Bobber, choosing violence.
Trying to get those homing missiles off.
Yeah.
This is the point that is so threatening with Fifth Brother. Bobber is on no hull, and you know that he's taking a hit in a crit. You know it's a bad place to be.
Yeah.
And nicely getting that block there, Bobber, with no actions this turn, single force for defense, and not sure about the range there to Fifth. We'll find out in a moment, but certainly taking fire from both Fifth and from Rampage. But range 1 to Fifth, so no homing missiles.
To quite a large degree, I think the block on Bobber actually helped me out. It kept Fifth Brother in range 1 and it allowed me to get 4 dice with rerolls into him. So even though Bobber didn't get an action, it still gets a double modded shot into Fifth.
Yeah, and importantly, dodges the homing missile as well.
Yes.
And that's that double-edged sword of blocking Bobber that we were talking about. But not a great opening roll. Going to have 2 rerolls here.
Oh.
Now has an interesting choice. I mean, I think spending the force at this point doesn't feel great. You know,
No.
I mean, there's an argument to try and force Fifth to bend a force himself to turn off his ability, but no guarantee to do that. Sensibly decides not to spend the force, and Fifth rolls the 2 evades anyway. So Fifth has gone from looking like he was in a bit of a dodgy position to actually now, you know, with only the 1 shot to shrug off, 3 agility, not too bad. We open up here with Rampage's first shot of the game. So range 2 does get his calculate. Those synced laser cannons, had he been at range 3, Bobber wouldn't have got the defensive bonus, but as it is range 2 anyway. I think you mentioned, Phil, in the list discussion stage that maybe target assist and syncs don't work great on Rampage. Is that because the benefit for synced is at range and Rampage is going to want to be sort of close in?
Yes, 100%. Looking at it now, when I built the list, I was looking at, well, you could charge in against aces. The aces would then move off, and the aces got the strain. But it's almost too difficult to plan, and it is only going against a certain archetype. A better loadout with him is to either put a HLC or auto blasters or both, and then use the flight assist, because that helps with the blues and helps with the barrel rolls.
What do you think of the ion cannon?
I like ion cannons because obviously you take away that decision for the opponent the next round, but it always feels like almost like a tractor beam. You're trading damage for control, and that's something that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely fair.
So Rampage here, spending the target lock, gets 2 hits. Bobber probably going to be okay from this one, but would like to get out of it without spending that force, I'm sure. So 2 evade dice, 2 rerolls, and the force.
Yeah, and this is something that you can never be sure of with Bobber. Unless you get those 3 hits, then he might just not take anything. Shooting him with a 2 dice gun or with an unreliable 3 dice gun just feels so bad sometimes.
And indeed, doesn't take anything. Maybe an argument there to keep the force to try and not take damage from Fifth, but I think that's a kind of low percentage play, and actually tempting Fifth into spending both force here might pay dividends. So we get the 5th shot here, range 1. Target lock on Bobber. Two hits, not bad. I'm going to get that free FCS reroll. Shows what Ollie and I know. Definitely better than passive.
Yeah, and this is now the situation where I think again, you want to spend the force. If you're in this situation, you spend both force, then likely you're taking a serious amount of damage from Koshka. If you only spend 1 force here, then you still have the force for defense. You're guaranteeing a damage into Bobber, and you get the half points as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bobber with a reroll here. He's got the 1 evade. See if he can get a second. No, so yeah, another 2 hits, and that is indeed half points into Bobber. This is going pretty well, Phill. Much better than my normal escapades against Bobber.
Yeah.
Looking pretty nice.
Yeah.
You get Vinder with a concussion missile shot through the asteroid here.
Yeah, I feel like Vinder's job here is to try and get Koshka to spend that focus token. You don't want Fifth to be taking that damage, so I feel like I don't know, Jason almost wants to keep it whatever happens, but Koshka is looking slightly damaged, and that's helpful.
Yeah, I think the tricky thing in terms of getting the focus spend is we saw another 000 trigger at the start of this round, and Koshka does in fact have a calculate. So the chances of him spending the focus on defense, I think, even with a better roll, would have been minimal. And so we get the FCS reroll from Vinder for hit crit, but Koshka rolling enough, spending the calculate, and taking no further damage.
Yeah.
And so here we've got the last shot of the round, and still looking pretty good for Phill. Koshka going to have to do some work here. Jason wants to start putting damage in at some point. It's got 4 dice, single reroll. Would have liked to see an all paint there, but has the Marauder reroll. He gets the hit, spends the focus for hit crit. We get 3 dice and a force in return. The average is about 1 damage here.
Oh boy! Yeah, that's a clinch moment. That is.
Yep.
I think maybe possibly deserved. There's the fire sprays have had enough shots at Fifth Brother to do that damage over time. It feels bad when it all comes at once.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really did. It's like I felt like I'd done everything I could possibly do, positioning wise, and minimizing shots and doing what I could, and then the dice just said nope.
Yep. And the crit here as well was a blessing for me. So Fifth Brother losing one of his dice on attack made him a lot less dangerous from this point.
Absolutely.
As you say, a weapons failure. It could have been worse. The direct hit obviously would have been dead, but the weapons failure is fairly crippling. And as Ollie said, definitely losing all that health in one go is unlucky. But considering that Fifth is sat at range 1 of 2 well-modded 4 dice guns, it's probably there or thereabouts the expected amount of damage going into the turn. But it does even the matchup a little bit.
Yeah.
I was just about to ask Jason at the end of the round, looking at his win conditions, how does he see himself winning the game from here? But I feel like it's just been made a lot easier. But Bobber is still burning. So how do you feel like you can win this game from here?
I need to get some guns off the board. I think so. The obvious one is Fifth Brother, but he's a lot less dangerous now than he was a couple of minutes ago. But also, Seventh Sister is flying into a corner with Bobber chasing her, so that there's an opportunity there. And Vinder is coming in towards Koshka, and you can't see it too well from the angle that we're looking at here, but the Vinder is just fractionally over from being able to go straight across, straight forward here because of the asteroid. He's going to catch that, so he's going to have to turn away if he wants to get actions and avoid the asteroid completely. So I'm kind of thinking with Koshka that I can predict where Vinder is going to go.
I was just thinking because obviously Vinder does have some tricks, but with the possibility of Koshka just doing a hard one, staying there and hitting him in the back, he doesn't really want to commit too hard towards Bobber at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3 bank kind of feels okay in terms of avoiding the obstacles, but yeah, if you're going to park yourself in front of Koshka, that could be a bad time. Phill, from your point of view, presumably at this stage you just want to kind of confirm the kill on Bobber.
100%. Confirm the kill on Bobber. Do what I can with Vinder. I'm tied into doing a blue move because of the threat of Koshka. And as Jason said, we can't tell from this angle, but that rock is basically dictating where I can go. So I just have to do my move, turtle up as best I can, and hope for the best with Vinder. And this turn, try and finish the job on Bobber.
And Rampage is in a slightly tricky spot. Last round we saw the 3 bank, and whilst I like that from the point of view of getting shots last round, I wonder, in hindsight, whether the 2 bank would have been better. I think ideally what Rampage wants to do from here is bank towards the top corner of the board, but I think with that asteroid there, he probably can't and is going to need to hard turn.
Yeah, that was it. I think I was too eager to get into the fight, having missed a couple of rounds of combat. So yeah, just a little bit over egged it.
Yeah, and that's really easy to do, isn't it? Once you get a ship out of position, you kind of feel a little bit more pressure to get them back involved. And also, not the easiest thing in the world from where Rampage started the previous round to judge exactly where he would end up with a bank this turn. So I think a forgivable mistake, but if you were to go back and play an ideal game, maybe an opportunity for a slight change there. I like this bomb drop, I think, from Bobber. Do I?
I wanted to try and discourage Rampage from coming in too hard and getting that range 1 strain token onto Bobber.
Yeah, and I think with the fact that obviously Fifth Brother has to move first here, if he does, either the proton bomb forces him to disengage completely, alternatively he just can't get away. If he turns into that hole to his left, then he's just dead. So I think in this case, risk is worth the reward. Mm-hmm. And if you do dial in a turn from Bobber, then obviously Slave 1 allows you to ensure that you're not going to hit that bomb.
Yeah, and so we wait to see whether it's been successful. As you say, Ollie, the 1 hard is going to land straight on that bomb, and then there's no amount of repositioning that will save Fifth Brother at that point.
No, if your base is literally covering the bomb, then even if you sent it, you are screwed.
Nice, as we predicted here with Koshka, I think really sensible. The 1 hard through the gap, and then just staying there, focusing. Going to potentially cause a lot of trouble for Vinder, depending on where he ends up. Oh, a K-turn. You don't see that very often from the TIE Advanced. I like it, though. Blocks Bobber's long bank maneuvers and is probably going to get a shot if he goes short. Does put 7th kind of in harm's way, really, but still has both force and, drawing far away from Fifth Brother may be no bad thing here. Fifth going straight, getting away from the bomb, taking the evade, very sensible.
The only thing that I worry about with this is that if Bobber has done a hard 2, then with a hard 2 and a boost, he can just go and straight joust Rampage and completely ignore most of the Imperial list here.
Yeah, I agree, but I think you kind of got to play for something, right? And the alternative was 7th continuing to be facing the wrong way. So I agree, a 2 hard here is really nice if it happens.
Having 2 arcs on the fire sprays means that you quite often you can just choose either direction and get shots.
And there goes the...
I was looking at this at that advanced slam, and I was thinking, I want the advanced slam because I want the weapons disabled so I can get the 3rd dice against Koshka. I was afraid that the bank, again from this angle, the 2 bank would have taken me over the debris.
Yep.
And I didn't want a chance picking up the stress again, but of course the 2 hards left me in a really nasty spot with the rock for next turn.
It does, but it does also shut down some of Koshka's options. She's forced to go fast here, and that makes it predictable.
Yeah, the fact that you're kind of blocking those moves from Koshka next turn is definitely a nice kind of consolation prize. I think sensible, as you say, that you want the 3rd agility. The link into the focus is kind of off the table because you don't want stress when facing Koshka, who would get a reroll from it.
Yeah.
For the same reason, I think the risk of taking the debris probably wasn't worth it. Although now sat facing that rock, it doesn't feel great.
So, quick question for Jason here. With Bobber's options right now, who do you shoot?
Well, my first thought was the obvious shot of Fifth Brother because he's only got 1 hole left, and I'd be able to kill him. But after a little bit of consideration, fifth brother doesn't have a shot this turn on Bubba, whereas seventh sister does, and she's far more dangerous. So I just had to shoot at seventh, try and strip away the force, try and do some damage.
Yeah, because removing that crack shot ability from seventh sister is so valuable, and with Bobber being able to shoot first, it's very likely with he gets 2 rerolls here. He's going to force her to spend something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also with the force and evade, fifth brother averages 3 evades on his defense roll, so Bob could kill him. Is probably one of the best placed ships in the game to get those 4 hits, but would need the 4 hits to have a good chance of killing. So this is definitely the percentage shot in terms of this. Is likely to do some damage.
Yeah,
get a good initial roll there. Has the focus as his action, so just rerolls the single dice.
Oof.
Not maxing out yet, but spends the focus. 3 hits. I think definitely the right choice. You want to at least strip force here.
That is a good result. That is a good result.
Wow.
Yeah,
Your
I think
tie advance are not good.
No. Still average damage though. I think Bobber would normally expect to get 4 there. So with your average defense roll, you'd expect to take 2 shields in this position if you were seventh sister. And I think in the end result of things, it's almost a win for Phill because he gets to keep hold of his force there for the crack shot on Bobber. And if you can take 2 shields on seventh sister and get 2 or 3 damage back on Bobber, then I think if you were told at the start of the turn that would be what happens, you probably take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have much preferred for Phill to have spent those 2 force to not take damage.
Yeah, well, I think where I feel I'd have much preferred to spend 2 force to take no damage, but I take the point that there is definitely a kind of silver lining. Nice roll here, hit crit, gets to spend just a single force to push the extra damage, and Bobber is taking a crit at least, has the force for defense and the 2 rerolls. Good chance of getting 2 evades here, but not a good start.
Yeah. Well, that is a sad Boba Fett.
And we've got super tanky ships on both sides here in tie advance and Bobber taking a bit more damage than we normally see. But as Ollie rightly pointed out, none of it's been outrageously sort of beyond the kind of expected damage. But it does take hit crit here. And Bobber taking a blinded pilot, which is not great. All those passive offensive mods disappearing.
I'd rather take the double damage there on Bobber.
Yeah, that certainly makes Bobber much less scary. Looks like we're going to be down to Koshka to try and save Jason's turn again, but we've got at least one more shot before that happens.
As we mentioned at the start, the problem that Rampage does have here is that whilst he is a beefy boy, he is slow moving, and you can definitely see that we've struggled to get him into the game here.
Yeah, does get the rear arc shot into Koshka. Not a great initial roll. And indeed, only ending up with the 1 hit. Koshka at range 3. Was calculated or? So interesting, you spent the calculate. So does that negate the ability of the sync laser cannons, or is it when you start the attack that it triggers?
When you start the attack.
So that's the way we played it. So.
Yeah,
So 2 dice, irrelevant anyway, because 2 dice with a reroll spends the calculate and takes no damage. Vinder weapons disabled, and his lock is on Koshka, so it isn't going to be able to get the shot. And as I said a moment ago, Koshka trying to rectify this situation that Bobber's found himself in. Nice range 1 shot. Be 4 dice into 3 with a focus for Koshka and no mods for Vinder. And that's nice. First genuinely good roll there, I think. 4 hits. Vinder looking for some natural evades here to not take too much. Only gets them.
Yeah, this is a big swing turn, and the dice haven't been going so good for the Firesprays at the start, but they've really turned on this round.
Yeah, it let Phill down there.
Yeah, but it's this was you needed a bit of a break there, Jason, because with these super defensive Imperials, you need a bit of a chance for them to blank out at some point, and it's really got you back in the game here. I think obviously you've got the point lead, even if it's looking quite close with Bobber burning. This now really makes it a game.
Yeah, obviously Bobber could come off the board at any turn, but I think position-wise, I'm in a fairly good spot. Koshka can chase up Vinder. Bobber is being kind of hemmed in, but Fifth Brother is not quite as offensive as he should be. And Rampage turning in there, I think I can deal with Rampage. I just don't want all three ships shooting at Bobber at the same time. If I can cut those numbers down, then I'm feeling happy with it. So I'm kind of looking for either out of arcs or bumps in this turn with Bobber.
Yeah. So where do you think the Imperial ships would go then, Phil, to try and trap Bobber?
So Bobber's options here would be he's got to go, in my mind, I was thinking he's got to go left and be that a hard 3 or a band. He wants to go quick because he wants to try and avoid the block. So I just want to try and clog up as many lanes as I can. So to really limit the options for him and get as many guns on as I can. I'm just trying to block him around that rock. Even if it's 2 attacks, I should be able to chip one damage per attack and get him off the board, and then turn onto Koshka.
Yeah, and with the amount of time left in the game, I think we're looking at kind of 2, maybe 3 turns left. Vinder looks like he doesn't have many choices. Presumably just going to bank in over that rock, except that he's hitting it, but hope to get a shot in on Bobber. Interested to see what you do with 7th, because kind of has options for the block, but probably not shooting Bobber. And Jason, from your point of view, is Bobber dead here and just going to try and do as much damage as he can before he goes, or is there a kind of hope for keeping him alive?
Bobber's going to very likely get 3 rerolls on pretty much anything he does this way. Not on shooting, as I remember in a couple of minutes, but he can still get the rerolls and use the force up for defense. So it's not over for Bobber until those rolls are made and you start drawing those cards. So I'm kind of not giving up yet. I'd like to get Fifth Brother off the board. The only moves he has are quite predictable because he's pointing towards the edge of the board. So I'm kind of the ship I'm really scared of is Seventh Sister, and that's who I'm trying to think of avoiding at all costs.
I do wonder if, and it's gutsy, but I do wonder whether a Talon roll to the edge of the board with Bobber would fit here.
Yeah, well, I did think about a 4K for a few seconds and decided I wasn't quite brave enough to try that.
They're both very
I think
close.
I prefer the 4K to the Talon roll right. The Talon roll right looks off to me.
It's squeaky. It is very squeaky.
Certainly, if it, I mean, I just don't think it fits. Basically,
that's fair.
if it did fit, it would not be taking any shots. But I'm pretty confident it doesn't. The K turn, I mean, the K turn is risky, but the K turn would sit you probably in quite a nice position. With Koshka here, is she just sort of coming around trying to get shots on 5th to ensure the kill, or does she start trying to score some more points elsewhere? Oh wow, she Talon rolls herself.
Yeah.
What was the thought process behind that?
I wanted to have my guns pointing at Vinder, basically, and limit where he could go. So looking at the choices that Phil had with Vinder, I kind of thought if I can get far enough away from that asteroid with the Talon roll, I can get some shots on and then follow in after Vinder when he banks in towards Bobber.
Yeah, and that not only covers that sort of bank in, probably catches the 3 bank, but were Vinder to try and sort of run away to the right here, you also cover that in a way that if you just hard turned, you wouldn't have done. So I quite like that talent roll.
Yeah.
It seems a bit.
Yeah, it was a very good move.
Yeah, obviously I would have loved to have been able to do a hard turn, hard 2, but Vinder was blocking all of those.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, with the hard 3 no longer being on the dial, obviously the hard 3 would have been the best option. But I like the talent roll as a good substitute.
Yeah.
At this point now, I realise it's going all in on Bob. I've probably done it a turn too long, and I should start trying to get some points off of Koshka.
Yeah, you're in an interesting position points-wise, aren't you? In that, at the moment, were you to kill Bob at 108 points, Phil's going to need a couple more halves to get up. But with where these 3 guys in the corner are, there's not much opportunity to go and get points off Koshka kind of after this turn. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. 7th looking like she's not going to get a shot there, but 5th might if he survives through the turn. Takes the evade, I think, again, very sensible. Trying to stay alive to take that shot.
Mm-hmm.
And Binder with the straight move rather than the bank over that rock. Oh, rolls a crit.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
And takes, just flipped off screen here, a direct. Wow.
Oh boy.
And all of a sudden sat at range 1 of Koshka with 1 health.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's going to make it. So no ability to do any actions, can't slam out of the way, can't get his 3rd dice. He is in trouble. Interesting to see what Bobber does here. Going to get bumped. You wonder, though, bumping into 7th might not be the worst thing in the world. It depends how far his arc moves.
Yeah.
And interesting. So, attempted the talon roll?
Yes, and I try the 3 positions to see if it will actually go round, but no, it's stuck there on 7th Sister, which actually worked out in my favour pretty well, because it meant that the only shot coming into Bobber is from 5th Brother, and he's got the weapons disabled crit, or weapons favored.
But it does mean that you don't get a shot on 5th. So you're going to be shooting at kind of a new target.
Yeah.
And I think here, whilst Vinder might die, if Phill can get Bobber off the board for basically just Vinder, then he's still in a good position. And as you were mentioning, with only a little bit left of the game, this is something that I think you should always be aware of in tournament play. The win condition is to win on points, not to destroy your enemy. And if you decide for the last turn or 2 of the game that it is the right thing to do to not take any more damage and just disappear into the corners, it's a legit way to win.
Absolutely.
So Bobber here decides to shoot at Vinder, rolls the 2 hits, has the opportunity to spend the force.
Yeah, so I was going to do a reroll, and Phil reminded me about the crit there. Yeah.
And so this is interesting, because obviously really wants to keep that force for defense, but now risks having to spend a 2nd shot to try and kill Vinder. Goes ahead and spends, guarantees the kill. Not sure I'd agree with that decision, but we'll talk through it after we see all of these shots. Vinder rolling the 1 evade there, taking 2 more damage, dies, comes off the board. Even had he had arc this turn, would not get a shot. And we're down to the I4s.
At this point, I'm thinking, I've got a target lock, I've got 2 force. Yes, I'm only rolling 2 dice, but I'm in a good position here to get Bobber off the table.
Yeah, so only the 2 dice, unfortunate, but 2 hits. Bobber with the 2 rerolls, but having spent the force, could take some damage here. So nothing on the first time, needs some paint. And gets the 1 evade to take him down to 1 health.
Yeah.
However, Phil Brother's ability.
Yeah. Ollie's taking the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, missed opportunity there.
Yeah, so I was watching this to do the overlay, and my heart sinks. So for the stream, could have spent the force there, did have full force to put the crit into Bobber and kill him, and doesn't. So Bobber living on 1 health.
Yeah.
No more shots going into this round. Is that something that you realise later on, or is that kind of new?
It's something I've only just realised now.
Oh.
Oh, can we go back and start again?
Oh, no. And I think it's tough because I was gonna ask you at the time. Obviously, you want to keep fifth brother alive, but you had the option to either take the focus or flip the crit as well to get more damage into Bobber. And yeah, it's such a tough decision to make on what to do.
Yeah, I think I agree with the evade, because at that point you don't know where Bobber's going to end up, and if Bobber gets a shot on you, I think the evade is your only way of living through it. So I agree with all the decisions, and it is easy towards the end of a game when things are tight. This is a league game; it's not casual, it's not practice. It's easy to forget things, and it may still be okay, but definitely a Bobber off the board here feels better than a Bobber on the board. With him being that I5, he's likely to get another shot now. Chip damage continuing. Koshka taking 1 more from the rampage shot. So sorry to do that to you, Phill. I nearly messaged when I was doing the overlay, but the kind of horrible content producer in me thought that the live reaction might.
Yeah, literally kicking myself now. Absolutely. Oh.
Yeah, and I think it was a mistake for me to spend the force on Bobber's shot there, given that Koshka could have shot at Vinder as well. So,
yeah, going back to that, I think
that.
it was.
Yeah,
I think that there was a decent chance that Bobber did enough anyway. Although you have got 2 damage in here on Rampage, which you wouldn't have done. You hadn't spent the force, and then Vinder would roll the 2 evades. But I think that it wasn't too much of a risk to kind of keep the force there. But as it is, you are alive, and we're going into the final turn. Jason is up 103 points to 54. Bobber's worth 108. So the win condition remains the same. If Bobber dies and Phill doesn't lose any more points, then Phill wins. So, Phill, going into this turn, you need shots on Bobber. How are you planning to get them?
At this point, I'd given up on Bobber, and I'm chasing Koshka, because I figure it's going to be easier for me to get half points on Koshka than it is to finish off Bobber where I am. That last shot was just soul crushing for me.
I agree with you that it's easier to damage Koshka. However, how, with your ships being where they are you going to get that positioning on her?
So I got the feeling that Koshka still had a proton bomb, so I couldn't go in too aggressive this turn. I felt that proton was coming, so it was utilising the rear arc on Rampage to try and put some more damage through, depending on where she moved to, and having 7th be in a position to start chipping away at long range, then rush in later on.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and although that might seem counterintuitive, Bobber's only requires 1 more health to be off the board, and Koshka is 2 away from half. Bobber is more defensive. He's got the passive rerolls and the force, and in the position that you're at the moment, difficult to get everything on. Something's, you've got to feel that something's going to bump Bobber. 7th to get a shot, it has to be K-turning. It does look a little bit tough. Koshka coming around the corner here, manages to avoid the rock, does she? But stressed from last turn, so no actions. But certainly sat in a position to threaten 5th brother.
I forgot to drop the bomb on from Koshka here. I really thought that 7th sister would be doing a K-turn or something like that to try and get back and shoot onto Bobber. I didn't expect her to come in after Koshka at all.
And not dropping that bomb has allowed her to boost in. May have had to take that risk and boost in anyway, but certainly not taking the bomb is nice, and is going to have a nice range 1 shot here with both force up. Rampage didn't have many options. Banking in. Difficult to see how he's sort of really going to contribute. Although if Bobber does try and hard turn and run, that rear arc may come into play. So taking the target lock on Bobber, I think that's a sensible choice. We saw 5th brother bump there, keeping back, has both his force.
Don't remind me.
Bobber taking the 1 bank.
That is a happy bobber.
Yeah, no, I thought, like as you said, there weren't many choices for Rampage, and looking at where Rampage could go, I thought I can hit most of them with a 1 bank, and then deny Rampage a shot, and I get to shoot before Fifth Brother, and hopefully take him off the board before he gets a chance to kill Bobber.
And even with Fifth Brother shooting you, with the fact that he has that weapons failure, it's just not quite as threatening.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, we've got range 1 on Fifth. So 2 rerolls if needed.
No, blinded.
Oh, of course, blinded.
Yeah.
But I think you spend that all day.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I for a moment I thought about it, but yeah, it's better to take Fifth Brother off.
And there's still hope. So Fifth needs all paint here to live, and then needs to do some damage to Bobber. It's not impossible. He has those 2 force.
Oh, that's not what you need there.
No, that's not going to do it. So, having missed the opportunity to kill Bobber last round, Bobber now takes Fifth off the board before he shoots. Isn't taking any incoming fire, and 127 points, even if Koshka is halved here.
Yeah.
Jason takes the game. So 7th, trying to make it look respectable. Nice hit crit there, and no tokens on Koshka. So does get halved, taking 3 damage, but the game is done.
Yeah.
So really interesting game, guys. I think actually really nicely played by both of you. Good to hear you kind of both had a plan going in, and I think you both stuck to it really nicely. Phill sort of laser focused on Bobber, and I think in a different game with slightly better dice or just remembering that crucial ability at the last moment, I think that would have paid dividends. And Jason, I think you did a good job of doing what you were going to do, which was never really engaging Phil's whole list at once, certainly scaring Vinder out of the fight initially. Slightly fortuitous with that direct hit to kind of take him out so easily, but Vinder not really an issue in the game at all. You know, had that one single modded shot through a rock, and you did a very nice job of cutting him out of it. Phill, starting with you, other than the obvious maybe, anything you would have done differently?
I think looking back at it now, I was happy with the setup originally, but I think putting Rampage in the middle would have given me more options. Possibly playing him just as a battering ram, and again changing the loadout slightly. But I'm locked to this list for the rest of this tournament, so I think starting in the middle with the tie advanced and flying them in a tight formation would have probably been a better plan, because it would have given me more guns on target. Vinder, I think I flew too cautious with him at the beginning, and then was so desperate to get him into the fight, I got him into a bad position towards the end game. So, yeah, a different approach with Vinder's definitely going to, you'll have to start working on that.
Yeah, I think that's very sensible. I think when stuff is moving after you, I'm a big proponent of kind of sticking in a block and making your opponent's life difficult in terms of approaching your list. And I think having done that, Vinder can, if you want, then kind of peel off and get onto the flank and get that kind of sweeping approach that he likes. But yeah, starting them off the block would have meant that Jason would have had a more difficult decision, I think, in terms of setup and approach. Jason, yourself, got the win there. Happy with how you played? Things to improve?
Yeah, I think I was very pleased that I didn't go in for the obvious trap of attacking Rampage and then having the Inquisitors causing damage and then Vinder coming in from behind or to the side, and it just would have been so hard to get out of. So I'm really pleased I just came along my own board edge and went in for Vinder. I was a little bit lucky with that first round of shooting when I did the art check on Vinder and knew exactly how far away he was, and I could do the maths and work out that I could do the 3-bank boost and get alongside him and completely avoid being shot by Vinder. That worked out really well for me. In hindsight, bringing Koshka in when he was at the top edge of the board, bringing him hard in onto the Inquisitors, it might have been better to go straight forwards and have both fire sprays with their rear arcs pointing towards the Inquisitors, because Koshka would have got the Marauder rerolls, and I could have carried on dropping proton bombs if they wanted to chase and do damage. But who knows how that would have worked. Actually, I got away with it, and I was quite pleased that I managed to get a lot of damage into Fifth Brother at that point.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think it was super solid throughout. Ollie, from your point of view, any kind of tips for the players or or things you'd have done slightly differently?
I really like both of their flying. The flying was great. I think the end of the game is something that both players could have improved on, not in terms of flying, but just awareness of both the points values and maybe the time frame as well. If you see here, if the Imperials had one more turn, you could have maybe just removed Koshka or Bobber from the board and pulled that win back for yourself. So maybe looking in and thinking, okay, if this goes longer, this will probably favor me. So you can start really speeding up, playing as fast as possible. It might lead to you making a couple of mistakes, but also just having those more turns of shooting with the multiple ships really can get more points in towards the end of the game there. So that's, I mean, for the Imperial side of things. And as well as that with Jason, he knows that he's in trouble and he really needs to reduce incoming firepower. I think Kosh got a little bit separated from Bobber. So I think coming in, and instead of doing that Talon roll, I think if Koshka had done the 3 bank and boost straight past Vinder, just relying on the fact that she just needs to get in support Bobber and get some more fire, then that could have maybe helped him claw the game more quickly in his favor, even if Bobber had gone down. So I think, just making sure to look at what your list needs to do and still bear that in mind at the end of the game, and especially keeping an eye on the clock. I think that could help both players.
I appreciate that. Enough. Thank you. I think I'm going to invest in some post-it notes and just stick them to the screen with ability.
Funnily enough, I thought I might get the physical cards from the game and just like prop them on the keyboard so that like I don't forget 000 or whatever, as a little reminder that way.
Yeah, playing Poe the other day, and I'm terrible at remembering to flip the S-foils. So I had the S-foils token as big as it could be sat on top of my dial, so I couldn't possibly flip the dial without seeing it. And that worked most of the time.
It's easy to forget. I think most of all as well, thank you very much to the both of you for coming on and letting us commentate on such a cracking game. Really tight all the way to the wire.
Thanks for asking us.
Yeah, thank you for asking us.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. Cheers, Ollie, for stepping in at short notice to give me somebody else to talk to. And thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.